series of 10 presentations in the Fall 2022 Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar. My name is Brad Flamm. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability, and I'm very glad to welcome those of you who are here in person in 255 Sykes, and for those of you who have logged on via Zoom. Our office is happy to be able to present this series of presentations every semester. This is the 11th that we have offered it, in collaboration with the Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and the Sustainability Council's Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. We have had I think a typically fascinating group of presentations this semester, and I'm very happy that we are going to be able to end the series this fall with a panel discussion with the two colleagues to the left of me, Professor Rodney Mader, who is the chair of Westchester University's Sustainability Council's Campus Trees and Green Spaces Committee. It's a long title at this point. And Josh Braid, who is Westchester University's grounds manager. I'll be kicking us off today with, I hope it'll be a shortish presentation about the Landscape Master Plan. It is a large document, and I am assuming that some of you in the audience today have not had a chance to look at it in any great detail. For those of you who are here in person, we have two hard copies that you are welcome to take a look at now or after the presentation. And for anyone, you can find a digital copy of this by going to wcupa.edu/facilities. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and you will find a link to a PDF copy of the Landscape Master Plan. So I have, as the Director of the Office of Sustainability, had the good fortune to be part of the very tail end of the development of this master plan. It came out in the fall of 2017, a few months after I started working at Westchester University. And it may well be that I met some of the people in this room my first or second day on the job when I was invited to a presentation by the consultants who were working on the plan. The document has been important to me personally and to our office over the 5.5 years since I started at Westchester, because it presents a compelling vision of what Westchester University could be in the physical sense of a major institution of higher education located in a suburban urban region, but with significant natural resources that have helped shape and define the campus environment over the 150 years since the Westchester Normal School was founded. But it is the case that the document sometimes has seemed to be a bit obscure and not have been as well known to the campus community as it could have been. And I would argue as it ought to have been. So this is an opportunity for us to learn about the plan and then to talk to two people who play important roles in both implementing the plan and thinking about the vision that it presents for our community. So let's see if I can get this screen advancing. The primary goal of the Landscape Master Plan is right there on the second page of the document. It was defined as being to facilitate the creation of a long-term incremental enhancement of the student experience and the emergence of a cohesive identity for the campus over time. One important element of this document is that it did take the university's mission and vision to be a place and a community of learners, of educators, to heart. and it took the idea of the student experience and opportunities for the students to learn both about the natural and the built environment of the campus and about the concepts of sustainability to heart in the information that it presents. Now, there is way too much in this 200-page document for me to present all of it in a short 10 or 15-minute introduction. But I do want you to have some sense of what the contents are and encourage you to take a look at the document after this presentation. The document itself was based upon a process of outreach to the campus community, discussions with the staff members at the university who actually commissioned 2 consulting firms, Landwork Studio and an organization called Biohabitats, to work on this, and the expertise of those 2 consultants. They conducted surveys, they held meetings, and they went back to their offices and took the information they gathered from consultations on campus and with the campus community, combined it with their expertise in landscape design and in ecological and environmental planning, and came up with analysis that identified 9 key, I don't know what the word they used was, but challenges of the physical space of our campus to incorporate in the recommendations they put together. So they identified that there were limited ecological expression and green infrastructure on campus. They noted that there is some and has been some, but that it was limited and there was potential to develop more. They focused on the way in which Church Street and University Avenue create divisions within the core of North Campus. They identified missing and redundant connections. We'll talk about the President's Walk as one of the features that they proposed, and how the existing design of the President's Walk doesn't connect as well as it could with the northeast quadrant of campus. They identified that some of the places where students spend quite a lot of time, like on Church Road, where the food trucks are located, isn't really a very conducive space to relaxation, to spending time together, that there were opportunities to develop those student spaces. They identified that much of the landscaping, particularly our large expanses of lawns, are fairly maintenance heavy and put demands on our colleagues in the grounds department. They identified the lack of a clear gateway to the campus. That has been addressed a bit with the creation of the new fountain at Rosedale and High Streets. They identified the many unsafe street crossings that surround North Campus, undersized walkways, fairly narrow sidewalks on major arterials like Rosedale and Hyde, and that there are some important locations on campus that have not particularly beautiful views looking out on expanses of parking. That used to be the case at Lawrence Hall. It still is the case at a place like Swope or EO Bowl Center. With this, let's see if I can move this. With this analysis, they concluded that the physical nature of the resulting open space network lacks a unifying focus and clarity, and that the potential of many student spaces remains unrealized, with the overall feel of the campus being one of fragmentation and disconnection. I would argue that this is an insightful analysis of some of the challenges of the physical space of our campus. And it's very helpful that the Landscape Master Plan identifies how they came to those conclusions. They take those conclusions about some of the deficiencies and what could be done and come up with a list of goals and objectives that focuses on the perimeter of North Campus, trying to make that a more comfortable and safe place to be, to identify gateways and signage that would help people understand the campus as a unified space. They looked at the circulation system, pedestrian and vehicular pathways and roadways within campus boundaries, looking at ways to increase safety of those spaces, thinking about the landscaping on campus and finding ways to diversify it and to come up with planting strategies that would emphasize the native ecology of this place in the world. The document itself is beautifully designed and drawn with maps and images and proposals that are really worth spending some time on. It's nice to be able to look at them in the hard copy versions. For those of you who are joining us via Zoom, the Office of Sustainability has a copy, the Grounds Department has a copy, and if you are interested in looking at the hard copy, please let us know. I'm going to show you a few of the images to give you a sense of what is in the document so that you're familiar with it. Each major section of analysis has several elements. A description of the existing campus conditions, such as this image, which shows the Rosedale corridor, and identifying some of the deficiencies and things that could be improved. The document then has a proposal for how things might be redesigned to address that primary goal of the student experience and creating opportunities for learning with the campus itself, and identify some of the features that would need to be incorporated in constructing a newly designed space. And then they put together some beautiful renderings that give you a sense of what that might look like. So this is one idea of what the Rosedale corridor could look like. And as you can see, it's a very different idea of what walking on Rosedale from New Street towards High Street might be like, with more green space, wider sidewalks, space set aside for activities, both passive and active, ways of making lighting along the corridor safer and more beautiful, signage to help people navigate. And you will find images like this that look at the existing conditions, a proposal for what they might be like, and some renderings of what it would actually feel like to spend time in those places in this document. So please take a look if you get a chance. The document identifies about 6 large areas in North Campus. And again, I'm not going to go into them in detail, but I want you to know that the Landscape Master Plan did consider each of them and come up with ideas for how to make them more beautiful, more active spaces for our community. One of them is revisions to the President's Walk. The President's Walk has largely been a section of campus at the southeast corner, from the corner of High and Rosedale, looping around the edge of Francis Harvey Green, and then connecting to the oval, the main quad, academic quad on campus. But there's ways in which that President's Walk could be taken farther north to connect all the way to the Business and Public Management Center. And there are some very specific recommendations about how that might be done. They also have looked at Church and University Avenue and put together a proposal that might turn Church Street into pedestrian access only, except for emergency vehicles. That's a really intriguing idea. There has been some discussion of it over the past 5 or 6 years. It's not quite ready to be implemented anytime soon, but the idea is there, and they link it to that primary goal of enhancing the student experience at Westchester University. Similar potential exists along the Plum Run corridor that goes from just next to the Business and Public Management Center, past Tyson and Goshen Halls and our new SEC building, past Lawrence, and then linking to the New Street Garage, which is where Plum Run is actually sees daylight from being routed through piping underneath that northwest corner of campus. They proposed taking part of the parking over by, in what's called M-Lot, over by Swope and EO Bowl, and converting that surface parking space into landscaped areas that could be used for many purposes. They don't actually propose doing away with the parking spaces. They're proposing that a new structure, a second parking garage, be constructed to maintain the number of parking spaces, but to free up more of the actual surface space of campus for all the purposes we've talked about already. So I've identified some the major areas. I missed one of them. They also talked about a recreation run that would go from the Student Recreation Center to Psych Student Union, and would have more landscaping design in that space, and would really be focused on recreation and physical activity. But the Plum Run corridor, the Recreation Walk, the Rosedale corridor, the President's Walk, Church Street and University Avenue, and the Northeast Quad are all given detailed attention in the document. The document then goes on in section 5 to look at specific features of our urban environment that could be improved and made perhaps more consistent to give the university more of a sense of its own individual character. They look at lighting and street furniture and artwork, signage and technology. These are just a few of the images that they include, largely examples from other colleges and universities in North America, to give the campus community some ideas of the types of things we might do if we made a commitment to these types of improvement to the campus environment. The section that I think many people in this room and who have logged on may be particularly interested in is the section 6, campus ecology and green infrastructure. The landscape master plan, as described in this section, strives to create a landscape that reflects the regional native ecology, not just with the plantings, but with the planting patterns that replicate natural systems where possible. It's a really inspiring vision, and the document goes on to identify specific areas on campus that exist to some extent in our current conditions, but could really be enhanced in many ways. So they talk about woodland groves, reflecting on the campus trees that are such an important part of the university. They talk about ecological essence garden zones and corridors in which native plantings would create sensory experiences for our campus community. They talk about stormwater best management practices. This is really important both in terms of the landscaping decisions that we have to make as an institution, but also because the university is legally required to pay attention to the management of stormwater. And we have specific responsibilities to Westchester Borough, to West Goshen Township, for the way in which stormwater is managed. They talk at probably not enough length, but about the concept of turf conversion and what they call interstitial spaces, those kind of small spaces that don't have a large presence on campus, but create opportunities for landscaping. The turf conversion is an interesting concept because it creates some opportunities to reduce the amount of maintenance that has to happen by our grounds department colleagues. And it's also a concept that Westchester Borough has recently shown some great interest in terms of the spaces that they are responsible for in the borough boundaries. They look at these other types of spaces, formal greens, the quads, the oval, edges and streetscapes, even surface parking lots. And again, they come up with ideas and examples from other institutions of higher education that might inspire some of the thinking that we as a community do moving forward. Finally, I just wanted to mention that they try to boil down some of their recommendations around green infrastructure and the ecology of this space that we are responsible for to these 6 general recommendations. Treat water close to the source, big focus on stormwater management there. Replace impervious surfaces where we can with permeable pavement. Limit any new disturbances to our existing natural spaces. Balance the initial costs, which sometimes can be high, with long-term benefits that sometimes can lead to very substantially reduced costs to the university. Create opportunities for multifunctional landscapes and use a diverse native plant palette. So I went a little longer than I promised I would, about 5 minutes longer. For those of you who want to just quickly get to the digital PDF copy, this QR code will take you there. I'll leave this up for a minute or two. But now I'd like to transition into an opportunity to hear from Professor Mader and from Josh Braid about some of the work they're doing and the ways in which this document has impacted the work that they do. So let me stop sharing here and make sure that I am not the person being seen, but that point this so that Professor Mader and Josh Braid are more visible to those of you who are logged on. I wish, let's see, I think I can pin this so that here, I don't think I've muted you. You can still hear us, can't you? So I have some questions that are directed to you individually, and then I have some questions that are both of you could answer, and perhaps some of the people in the room here or logged on to Zoom could answer. But Josh, I know you've been working in the grounds department for more years than I've been at Westchester University.
Management, I don't know, yeah.
Just familiar. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the development of the landscape master plan from your experience.
Yeah, so my experience primarily deals with I'm an operations manager, so I'm not dealing with the high level of planning, when this went forward. But it did coincide, the development of this landscape master plan in the beginnings did coincide with the beginning of my role as a manager of the grounds department, right around 2016, 2017. And my role as part of the, I guess, initial process that got this rolling was to speak with landwork studios and biohabitats to provide them any kind of information that we had in terms of maintenance, take them around the property, show them what we're dealing with, and then also provide input. What would we like to see in terms of plantings, maintenance, again, because we're operational, we're out there performing the work, seasonal work that the university needs. And it was interesting because right off the bat, this plan starts with the ecology of the area, where we're located in the watershed. It takes this 40,000-foot view of campus, and it's really sort of coming from the position of a much more, how can we create a much more sustainable environment, not just through biodiversity and things like that, but I mean, how can we actually sustain campus operationally in better ways, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. So, you know, my experience was very positive about that, you know, it's always fun talking with landscape architects, seeing what their mind is, and being able to really think outside the box and come up with a large vision for campus, especially when you're so focused, narrowly focused most of the time in one area.
And could you tell us a little bit about the implementation of the plan, and talk about the diversity of people who would have to have some responsibility for helping Westchester University get closer to this vision than we were in 2017 when it was published, and even than we are in 2022.
Sure. There are a lot of elements, parties, people involved, I think, in order to get this plan actually to where we are now, and then, you know, where we're going to be hopefully in the future, in 20 years down the line, 10 years down the line. You know, I think initially, and you included it in your presentation when you spoke about, there were these sessions landscape architects held with the community of educators, with Westchester University, getting input from, you know, people that normally wouldn't be thinking about landscape master plan. And then, you know, collecting information from people in design and construction on the facility side in order to develop, you know, what are the logistics of campus? You know, how is this serving student need? Which is really, really important, you know, to think about. You know, examples like how are people biking on campus? You know, where are people sitting down? What are the major corridors students are traveling? How does the campus function as a, you know, this small entity that within itself nestled in a greater borough of Westchester? So, you know, grounds is just one small part of the input. Design and construction, you know, our administrators within facilities that are providing, you know, the useful data that goes into, you know, construction, this sort of book of how the university operates, but also how it could operate. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's a good start. I mean, for us to think about, you mentioned several divisions within our facilities division, and clearly a lot of people would have to get involved. People whose job it is to work with the physical structure of our campus. But Rodney, another group that is interested in this document and the vision in it are members of the University Sustainability Council. They are not. There are members from facilities who are also Sustainability Council members, but the council is over 100 students, faculty members, staff from all kinds of offices on campus who care about these ideas, and they too are interested in this document and the vision of it. Could you tell us a bit about specifically the Campus Trees and Green Spaces Committee that you chair, but maybe talk a bit more about the Sustainability Council as a whole?
Okay, but I want to start with just encouraging people to look at this document. It is amazing. I read through it this morning because I was prepping for this, and it's beautiful. I'm a fool for landscape architects too. Like, I will look at a map any day of the week. And what I actually started to tear up a little, because what I saw was a vision of what this place could look like. And then I also knew that I wasn't going to be in this place by the time we got to that. So yeah, to get to the Tree and Green Spaces Committee. So why are we interested in the Landscape Master Plan? Is that what the question is?
Well, tell us a bit about that committee,
Okay.
what its role has been. It's evolving right now to put more of a focus on the larger concept of green spaces on campus than it has done in the past. So tell us about the committee. What is the role of the committee, and do you see some direct connections to what's in the landscape master plan?
Yeah, definitely. So the role of the tree committee, and I believe it started out as one of the requirements for the tree campus higher education designation. And so that has certain requirements that you have to celebrate Arbor Day. You should have a tree committee. You should have certain constituents represented on the tree committee, etc. So one of the things we do is we reapply every year for tree campus designation. I think we're on 10 years now. Is that, yeah. And over the past couple of years, we've also gotten level 2 Arboretum designation from ArbNet, which is a different organization. The tree campus organization is run by Arbor Day Foundation. And the ArbNet is like a worldwide network of arboreta. And we, at this point, have enough going on with our care for trees and our interest in and concern for trees that we're a level 2, and we are thinking about becoming a level 3, but that involves another level of things to do. So also on top of that, traditionally we celebrate Arbor Day, and we have worked on over time a tree care policy, and that we had a terrible incident last year when the SECC was being built, and we had a lot of damage to trees on campus because the construction people were just careless and negligent.
And yeah, I mean, I think actually having a tree committee helps really benefited the university, because there could have been some really bad decisions made, and I think that some of our neighbors and some of the people on the committee really helped there. Yeah.
Okay. That comment you just made, Josh, about the fact that the university has a tree committee helping the university negotiate with contractors who were doing work for us that we asked them to do, makes me wonder if the Campus Trees and Green Spaces Committee in particular, and perhaps the Sustainability Council as a larger organization, could play a similar role in terms of encouraging the university to make future efforts around the design and construction of and landscaping choices fit this vision more effectively than we've done over the past 5 years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely, I would agree with that. I wouldn't even limit it to just the Tree and Green Campus Committee. I mean, I think other elements of the sustainability subcommittees can also probably, apply pressure or help realize this end-all goal, whatever it might be, or take aspects of this plan and implement. In terms of the Tree Committee and Green Space Committee, if you dig into this plan, you realize that this just drastically expands our tree canopy, North Campus. I mean, it's fantastic. Like Rodney said, if you dig into this and you start looking through the renderings, which is just one tiny little concept you expand upon, very, very quickly you become excited about the trees, about these ecological areas where they're planting, cone flowers and things like that, which are like, drought tolerant, but you can provide like a beautiful area and also have it be somewhat maintenance free and require less water, but also function as a form of stormwater management. So you can tie all these things together, so it becomes very exciting very quickly. And I think having these committees that are helping facilities sort of prioritize things helps. And I don't want to go off on a super big tangent, but I think it's already sort of happening slowly with the idea of maybe taking some green lawn spaces and trying to do like some sort of modification of these spaces. We're drawing on what the ideas that are in here. We might not be specifically dealing with the areas that we're talking about, but we're going into these limits and saying, hey, these are the plants we should be planting, and this is why. So,
Well, that leads into a next question. This document is now 5 years old. Can you tell us about what elements of it have actually been implemented to date?
So yes, I think primarily, I think a couple areas. One, the President's Walk, and that sort of showcases a few ideas in here. Number one, it provides an ADA space at the corner of campus. Now people can, this wider pathway to get into the center of campus. It's much better. It eliminated some dangerous switchbacks. In terms of operation, it's a much cleaner operation for snow maintenance and things like that. It defines a boundary. It says, hey, this is Westchester University, don't drive by, it's right here, the fountain. You know, it provides these meeting places for students to have experiences, which is, if you read into this plan, is very important. So it provides for student needs. It also, with the gardens around the fountain, and you know, it's Pennsylvania native plants planted in a way that is both aesthetically pleasing, and eventually there will be a reduction in maintenance, a reduction in mulching. It will be healthier in general. Should they have reduced the lawn space and done more plantings? Probably. You know, that will come in the future. So President's Walk. Some people love it, some people hate it. I do like the planning portions of it. I do like the fountain. I like the fact that they use pervious pavers as a system to retain the water. So, you know, there's certain maybe aesthetic portions that don't agree to me, but in the end, it does fulfill, sort of capitalizes on some of the ideas. Plum Run, the SECC project, the plantings around that area are fulfilling, or is the page out of this book in terms of rain gardens, water management, green roof structure for the SECC building. The Plum Run itself was planted using natives in such a way that it can be expanded upon in both directions, you know, up towards going through Goshen and up into the business center, and extending, you know, westwards and southwards, continuing following Plum Run to New Street parking structure. So, you know, if they could build a boardwalk out in that area and expand these plantings, that would just be amazing. It might be a little bit more maintenance, but in the long run, I mean, it would really be worth it. What are some other areas? The BPMC with the retention basin there, even though it's been a struggle, the idea was in the right place. And that's something that really needs to be improved upon. It will be improved upon, but I think the plans for that building predate this, but they were already heading in the right direction. You could almost look at that as the furthest northern and eastern extension of the Plum Run, right? So these ideas are being realized. I think we've realized a few of them. I do feel like the campus is still segmented in certain ways, especially Church Street, dividing campus and there's wonderful ideas about what you could do with that space in this book. Really, I think actually the majority of this book is designated to Church Street ideas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I could go on and on.
Yeah, well, no, thanks. You've hit some of the major initiatives that have seen light since then. Rodney, you talked about the Campus Tree Committee working on a tree care policy. And I'm wondering if that policy can help realize Josh's eyes really lit up when he talked about what the tree coverage on campus would look like if this document were realized. Does the tree care policy address adding additional trees to campus and filling out perhaps towards that vision?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually explicit in the tree care policy, but that's part of what the tree committee does.
It's part of it's a stated goal. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, that is something that we're deeply interested in. And also, like, not just saying we need more, but also consulting with which ones those are. I should have said that, you know, in the very diverse group of the campus tree committee, we have an arborist who works for the borough. We have Nora, who's the director of the GNA. We have Josh. We have Joan. I mean, we have a bunch, and Walt, who wrote the book on Flamm Run, and so who is name called in the landscape master plan. So yeah, we have a really, really diverse group of people who are involved, and so we have all these. Like for me, it's been quite a learning experience because we have all these perspectives on how important trees are to the campus, if not to the entire borough and the region.
Thank you. You know, I have more questions, but I want us to have time for questions and conversations with the audience. So why don't we pause here and open up to we'll open up first to folks who are here in 255A, and then we'll turn to a question from the Zoom audience. And I'll repeat a question for those of you who are on Zoom that's from here in the 255A. Sean, I saw your hand up first. There was a bad pun there about branching out and trees.
I think it is wonderful to hear about vision, and I have a very specific question about data. So, is that something that you run into in the implementation of what looks to be a pretty comprehensive document, looking at the size of that thing here? Is that something that creates barriers for the work that we want to accomplish? Timeline.
So the question was about staffing and the human resources we need to realize the specific projects in this and the timing of those projects. Are there barriers we face because of staffing levels?
I can take a question from a kind of an operational perspective within the grounds department. I think the answer is probably yes. But there are trade-offs, right? So anytime you're creating more of a landscape environment, you know, it is more intensive on our staff, right? It requires more time. However, if you're eliminating certain lawn spaces in other areas, you're and sort of changing those landscapes, you know, you are eliminating a maintenance that had happened in the past, you know, in those areas quite the same way. So I think the answer is that yes, possibly. I mean, if this was fully realized, it's quite ambitious. But most of the planning suggestions in here are meant, it's intensive for the short term, but in the long term, the maintenance side of it kind of goes away. Because once you're establishing these areas that primarily will pretty much take care of themselves, maybe they require some seasonal work, but in terms of maintenance, it's much friendlier for us. That kind of partially gets to the root, but in terms of implementing this, you know, it's I think it's a higher level question that maybe only possibly the administration can answer.
Good, thank you. I know there's another question here in the room, but I saw one come through on the chat, and I wondered, BG Betts, would you like to unmute yourself and pose the question so the panelists can hear?
Sure. I didn't actually have a question so much as I had two suggestions. The first suggestion is about sort of making the street crossings on High Street more visible, especially in the darkness. And my suggestions were actually based on what is true in downtown Westchester in front of the Judicial Center, which is a raised walkway that when a person walks onto it, it triggers those flashing crossing lights. Because I will say frankly, it is terrifying to drive on High Street in the dark when class is let out and students just meander across the street in the darkness wearing dark clothes. And it needs to be more visible. It needs to be more safe for the drivers and for the pedestrians, of course. And then I would also say that the university should seriously consider adding bollards around the perimeter of the university, between the roads and the campus itself. Bollards are considered extremely important to try to prevent the sort of vehicular terrorism that happens when vehicles drive up onto the sidewalks, and they need something to block. And bollards are architecturally desirable, and they're not ugly, and they could be very safe. Thank you.
Thank you. There are elements of the landscape master plan that specifically address both of those elements, and safety of pedestrians and making driving conditions safer for motorists too is part of the document. I see Lori. I'm going to Lori Hires. I'm going to go to a question here first, and then we'll come back to yours in just a moment. Alden, I saw you had your hand raised.
Well, there's a comment, and in the beginning, Brad, you really hit it nail on the head. Like, this document is public available on a really read it sites of the university can be. But in many cases, I see decisions, maybe things from that same something that's a bit go against things from the master plan, such as the additional green parking garage, which pretty much goes against a lot of principles of closing down. Church Street, or Church Street, and turning it into a recreation space. But I also think that there's many ideas that have now 5 years later have its function, such as the president's block, which does need to be expanded. But I just want to know what you guys feel about having that plan be more of a resource for construction or decision making at the administrative level. That this was a document that was created from the community, from students, and so forth, but I don't see it acted on.
So the comment was about some decisions that have been made in the past 5 years that may be contrary to some of the proposals in the landscape master plan. And Alden, I hope I'm not paraphrasing you, but you asked, how can the administration be more aware of the principles and the recommendations in this document so that decisions moving forward reflect the recommendations in the document? Did I? Okay.
Yeah, Alden, I think that's a great question, and it's a question that I think we all have been having. And I think that, frankly, that's probably a reason why this is the last seminar of the season, because this is super important and we've all been impatient with it. The landscape master plan is beautiful and wonderful, and it has a bunch of great ideas, but it says up front that it is a set of suggestions and it's not binding in any way. And so administration will do what administration wants, but the more people know about the landscape master plan, the more, I mean, this costs money, right? And so we can say this money was spent on this document with these recommendations, and you could choose option 1, 2, or 3 for the plum run thing, but we've got to do something. And there is a level of accountability that we can use this document to leverage.
We are a little past 12:50, so we always pause right here for anyone who does need to log off or leave to get to another class or meeting. So if you need to do so, please go ahead. But I think Rodney and Josh, you're able to stay for a bit more discussion. And for those of you who can online and here, you're welcome to. Let's turn to Lori Hires, who had her hand up a bit ago.
Hi, thanks everyone. It is an amazing plan, and that when I hear the whatever it was 10 or 12 problems on campus, it was like getting a diagnosis and when you had a feeling that there was something wrong. It's amazing what they pointed out, and I wish they would come now, like remodel my yard and give me ideas, but of everything that's wrong. I wanted to ask about so this is only a recommendation. This was a one-time, they're not revisiting and reconsulting, correct? They gave us this one document. That I have a couple process questions and then one more thing to say, but is that the case? That are they still working with us, or was it one and done?
I believe this is one and done.
Okay.
Some of the projects that maybe that came out of this or were modeled after this, they were working with, I believe they were working with the same group that helped put this master plan together. At this point, I don't think that's the case, but yes. I do believe there was a master plan that predated this, maybe 40 years ago. I stumbled upon it cleaning out my office. I have it. Yeah.
Okay. So it isn't necessarily that the university has signed up for all of this. It was just a recommendation, and we can then choose. One of the things about process would be trying to get, you know, maybe more people involved in thinking of different pieces of it, and because you know, when it's a top down, I assume they consulted with people and did focus groups and all kinds of things, but then now that it's kind of a top-down document, it's hard for different constituencies to plug in. But I think green spaces and I mean, the tree committee has been a great connection, but just one question is, that circular quad, they didn't identify that as a problem, but I see it as a fairly inaccessible space, but maybe that was on purpose, but the circular quad with kind of ropes around it, it's a raised surface, so wheelchairs can't get easily access to it. I find that to be not a very functional and welcoming space. Am I right in that observation? Or, I mean, maybe it's supposed to be kind of inaccessible, but.
So I think your observation is a very, very good observation. The quad or quoval is definitely an improvement upon what was there previously, I think, but maybe not. I think it boils down to you know, personal taste. Operationally, it's much easier to manage in terms of snow operations. The way it's designed, it's really is designed to push you around the oval rather than cutting through it. We really actually, if I see you cutting through the quad, I will personally shame you.
Okay, well,
and I'm sorry, but yeah, the idea is to create something that just looks, you know, collegiate in nature, and then have, if you look at it from above, it does have sort of a geometric pattern that does lead into the Frederick Douglass statue.
okay.
So,
Well, that stuff maybe I didn't realize, but it isn't in the spirit of trying to create more interactive and nature-friendly spaces. It isn't either of those things, and I was just surprised it wasn't identified as one. All the other things hit the nail on the head for me, but that is a space that I feel like it could be filled with trees. I mean, I understand the purposes. You know, there's other purposes for it, and like you said, the snow removal, all of that. The other thing I was thinking about the report is that Zoom.
Yes. So Joan just commented that architecturally, having that open space in the quad allows you to see the perimeter of adjacent buildings unobstructed.
Yeah.
Which is the downside with main hall.
Which is a total downside with the main hall. Yeah.
Yeah. The mysteries of it, that's fine. I just had a different idea of how I thought, you know, that might be used. But the Zoom, in our new Zoom culture where so many students are wanting to be online, I think all of those benches and the designs of having more spaces where people can socialize outdoors is great. But then there is a problem of investing in that when more and more of our students want to stay at home and take classes. And I feel like if the report was written in 2017, that may be not considered if you're going to spend millions on making more spaces where students, if we're going to continue to have online classes. Did any of you think about that?
Hoping the trend reverses itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. That,
John,
yeah.
did you want to?
I have a general question about planning my plans about in particular, I would like us to consider thinking about the landscape. I mean, like if you think about any building, the building takes in so much energy and gives us so much CO2. I would like the landscape plan to consider the landscape in the climate action plan as a source of taking up carbon as a in the soil, soil carbon is a metric, or even thinking about tree canopy cover and woody plants as a biomass that sequesters carbon. I would like the landscape plan for the landscape to consider the actual impacts on the climate as well as a future suggestion.
May I quickly try to paraphrase, and I'm not going to do justice to Joan's comment, but she asked first about whether there are any plans to update the document. And if so, would such an update take into account the carbon capture and sequestration potential, both of the trees and other plants on campus, but also of the soil?
I was just going to say there is language in the landscape master plan that points to that as a potential, but it's not in any of the kind of like end results. So I think that would be also an area, an opportunity for us, which is to just start to push that as part of what's, what we're interested in. I did want to say before, I know that, just give me a second. I did want to say before that as much as I love the tree committee, I think that BG's idea, I think if we start with the safety thing, with the fact that like students are actually endangered by some of these crossways, that if you start to do stuff like that, we're going to be spending money anyway. And so we can think about the roadside spaces that are corridors that we can put native plants in. I think that might be one of the more productive ways to put the wedge in sharp end first,
I would like to suggest that we could incorporate some of tree campus in this space. We were talking about 40%. So we could think about some measurable attributes of the landscape that could serve as goals, guidance, and then it's sustainable agriculture. We talk about regenerative agriculture, but we can turf areas and meadows. The conventional ag is at 1.5% organic materials, which is miserable. If we could set some soil organic matter goals, 3, 4, 5%, I don't know, but it could considerably counteract whatever carbon we're putting in the atmosphere.
So Joan is encouraging us to think about specific metrics that would help guide implementation of this plan, metrics that might involve campus tree canopy coverage and also carbon content of the soil, noting that regenerative agriculture has some metrics that we might be able to use on campus with our turf areas and other areas. We're at 1 o'clock, so we are going to have to finish up, but can I ask each of our panelists just to take 30 seconds and answer the question, what could the people in the audience today on Zoom and here in this room do to support and help move forward this document?
I can't do anything in 30 seconds, but
Yes, you
I
can.
think that if everybody in this room, I mean, like that old commercial, if you just told 2 or 3 people to look at the landscape master plan, if they're anything like a bunch of us are, you will get absorbed in that document. And the more people who know about it, the more we're going to be able to use it as leverage for accountability.
Yeah, I agree with Rodney 100%. That's 5 seconds. No, yeah,
I'd love to hear it. You can say it again.
and I don't know, I could get in trouble for this maybe, but I would reach out to facilities and just see where they are. Just ask the question. It doesn't hurt to ask the question. Hey, I was looking at the master plan. It's incredible. Where are we with that, by the way? And maybe you get an answer, maybe you get a non-answer, but when people do that, then it's directing attention there.
All right. Thank you very much, Rodney Mader and Josh Braid. And thanks to all of you who have attended this semester. Look to the Office of Sustainability's email bulletin for information about the spring semester program. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.